Hey guys, xthedarkone here again for another fucking Yu-Gi-Oh discussion video. No glasses this time and no hair at all. I've completely shaved my face and head because times they are changing. Talking about times they are changing today. With today's conversation, I would like us to talk about the game, not just the game in general, but about how, first of all, how we all got involved in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like what was it that really brought us into Yu-Gi-Oh, and how exactly has it affected our lives in general, and how can it affect our lives in general? So it's more talking about the franchise itself and the fans and the fandom and all that kind of malarkey. And I'm going to start today by the way, the deck I'm using today, I've made today because to tell this story, I've made a deck in honor of this, of the monster that kind of got me into Yu-Gi-Oh really. So let's wind back the clock about, let's go in on to fucking, I don't know, 2001, 2002, when Yu-Gi-Oh first started, the anime Yu-Gi-Oh first came out. Back then, my anime know-how, if you would, was not great. In fact, all I knew of anime was, I'd come home from school, put on Toonami, and be like Dragon Ball Z, Tenchi Muyo, stuff like that. So that was kind of the extent of my anime. Really, wasn't that big into the anime malarkey as I am now. But I was interested. That's when I was kind of growing into the interest of anime. I don't even think at the time I even knew how to name anime. But anyway, I remember Yu-Gi-Oh coming out, and I remember seeing a trailer or an advert or whatever for Yu-Gi-Oh for the show, and at that point I remember looking at that thinking, what the fuck? Like, genuinely sort of looking at it going, really? It's like an anime about playing cards? I just thought that was like, I mean, at that time I was all about the action adventure, kind of genre. That's kind of what anime was to me. So when I found out that they're just playing cards, that the whole premise just seemed very silly. I remember saying, yeah, I'm not going to watch that. It looks really ridiculous. But then I remember watching. I remember another advert came on for the. Again, if I've told this, I think I've told the story many a time at panels and stuff. So if you've heard it already, I do apologize. But I feel I have to explain how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh. This is how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh. This is how it all started for me. So yeah, I saw an advert for like the Yu-Gi-Oh toys, and it was like the legend. Oh fucking hell, really? Okay, so that's happening, but it's alright because I've got Monster Reborn, so fuck off. But I'll just do all that again then. Just get Red Eyes, Darkness Metal out. And then use his effect again. Let's get Blue Eyes. So you've just wasted a card there. Whatever your name is. Anyway, I saw the advert, and it was like, oh, all the toys. And again, bear in mind, this is just, Duelist Kingdom when it was out. So, you saw Dark Magician toy, and it showed up, and then it showed the Blue Eyes White Dragon toy that you could get at the time. And I remember thinking that's just such a stupid name for a card. I remember thinking, like, Blue Eyes White Dragon. Really, that's the best. They couldn't think of anything else other than a description for its name. I remember being very harsh about the whole ordeal, but I was just like, how ridiculous is that? But then I was like thinking, I like putting myself on things. I think if I had a card like that, it would be good. You can probably see where I'm going with this already. If I had a card like that, if I had a dragon in Yu-Gi-Oh, I'd call it the Red Eyes Black Dragon, and no word of lie. And again, this is before I had any prior knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh. I had no clue about Red Eyes Black Dragon. I genuinely said Red Eyes Black Dragon because it was just the obvious sort of polar opposite. So that's what I said. I said, Red Eyes Black Dragon. Fast forward a couple of weeks, months after I made that joke to myself, and it was a Saturday. I remember that much, and there was absolutely. Oh, I've won this duel, crazy, and there was absolutely there was nothing on TV. It was like in the morning, and for those who don't know, Sky One would have in like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning would have like, you know, cartoons and stuff like that. So I was flicking through, and again, fuck all on. So then I came, it's about 7:30. YuGiOh was on. It was the only. I thought, you know what, fuck it. I think it was already halfway through. It might have been actually about 10 past, 7:15. So I flicked on. It's like, you know what, it's on. I'm just gonna leave it. A bit of background noise. I wasn't really listening, and it just so happened to be the duel between Rex Raptor and Joey Wheeler, which is where, and then I was watching it, and then that's where Rex summons Red Eyes Black Dragon, and that's when my ear went, oh, my ear went, oh, I heard it, and I went, fuck, oh, that's pretty cool, and straight away, just the fact that there was that card that I'd already said Red Eyes Black Dragon, that made me go, okay, I tell you what, I'm gonna give it a watch actually, because I thought that was pretty weird. So I started watching it from that episode on. And that's kind of how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Then. I remember I would watch all the shows and stuff, and I remember I actually had I remember my dad had given us these like bonds in a bank or whatever, and he said, right, I'm gonna give you access to that money now because you're 15, you know, you're old enough, you know. There's quite a good amount of money in there, and he'd saved it all up, and he said, that's right, he gave us access to it. And I was good with it. I didn't go mental with it or anything. And there was a shop in Blackpool that it was the only kind of comic book shop in Blackpool. There's another one now, but it's only these 2 shops here that are comic. In fact, no, actually, I would argue and say it is the only comic book shop in Blackpool still, called Thunderbooks. And it was really far away from where I lived. But it was the only real place I could go to get comic books. That's kind of what I was into at the time: comic books and reading and getting awesome and getting rare. I still kind of do collect comic books, but at that time, that's when I was really collecting comic books, and I went in there. That's where I normally went to find like I thought, you know, to find a little gem if I could find a nice little rare comic, quite an old comic in good condition to buy. So I went in because my idea was to obviously, you know, put it in a folder which is under my bed. And to keep them in mint condition, you know, let them earn over time, you know. Anyway, I was going to this Thunderbooks, and then one day I went in, and behind the counter, I remember it clear as day. I remember the Legacy. That's when the cards came out. Legacy of Blue Eyes, and the Yugi and Kaiba structure decks. And I remember seeing that Dark Magician as it was in the show, and the Blue Eyes, thinking, holy shit, they're there. You know, you just kind of get taken aback by it. I was like, whoa, I mean, I knew it was a card game, so it's kind of, I was like, oh, logically, obviously there is a card game, so why wouldn't there be a card game? Oh, wow, they've actually brought the cards out. So naturally, I spent so much money just buying these cards. I bought like, I think that day alone, I bought like 3 of each starter deck and like 3 boxes. But that's when the boosters were relatively cheap. Obviously, they've gone up to stupid prices now, but I just remember buying a shit ton and just constantly just getting into it. And I didn't even know the proper rules at the time. I remember because I didn't have anyone to play. I only had the little rule book, and the only person I had to duel was my sister. So I kind of got her briefly into Yu-Gi-Oh. I kind of taught her the way what I knew. And I kind of got her playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So we'd play. I even remember where we'd play. We'd play like at the top of the stairs. I had this weird habit of so we'd have the stairs, then a little landing, then 3 more stairs, and then the upstairs hallway. And I would always like kneel on over those 3 little steps onto the upstairs hallway and play with my toys, play with my whatever. That would be like my play spot. So that's where me and Charlotte would have our duels. I would do that, and she'd lie on the floor opposite, and we'd have duels on that patch there. So that's kind of more or less how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh. Just where am I going now? New card shop. Okay, and like I say, and that's more or less how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh. But the more I think about it now, the more I actually don't. I kind of only realised now how much my life has sort of significantly changed thanks to Yu-Gi-Oh! Essentially, I mean, oh, there he is. Fucking Jack. See, I know Jack uses a fucking dragon deck, so this will work well. I'll be dueling against him with my dragon deck. Back. Gotta save it first. Right. back, and I'm going to save it properly. I'm not sure if I've saved it. So, and it kind of just dawns on me that, like, if it wasn't for, obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, obviously, I better just kind of telling my life story. So, through Yu-Gi-Oh!, eventually, my friend Ash, who some of you may know from the Team X Force page, aka Forceball, I got him into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I sort of taught him, and we kind of started dueling together. And then he told me about this club in he told me about Woolworths when they were open. The Woolworths in Blackpool did a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tour, not a tournament, like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Gathering every Saturday. So we said, oh, it's a Saturday, every Saturday, mate. Should we go to it? So I was like, yeah, sure, sounds alright. So we both went to that. We both rocked up. That's where we met our friend Jace to face. And then our friend Gary, we then, there's a place in Blackpool at the time called Twisted. The best way I can describe Twisted for any Americans is a Hot Topic, like gothy kind of shop. But it was like a privately owned, it wasn't like a franchise. It was just the one shop. But above it was owned by a woman. But above it, her brother or friend or something, our friend Gary, he had, like, you know, old video games and board games and card games, including Yu-Gi-Oh! So every Wednesday night after the shop had closed, he'd clear all the downstairs gear up, lay out a load of tables, and we'd all play. You know, we'd have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Club from close till about. Sometimes it could go till about. I'm pretty sure. I remember staying till about midnight. Sometimes we would just stay for as long as we wanted, because it was mainly obviously we'd have kids come around about 6 o'clock, 5:30 when the shop were closed. But there was adults there as well. We would just stay and, you know, do what we wanted, do it on our own time and stuff. It was actually funny because obviously at that time I was about 18, 19, and I would go out every Wednesday night and not come back till the wee hours. And I remember my mum, and I kid you not, genuinely remember my mum, like, not accusing me so much, but sort of making assumptions that I was going out and, like, dealing drugs or doing drugs, like doing something that, like, she's like, you go out every night, every Wednesday, it's only Wednesdays, and you're not drinking because you don't come back drunk or anything, you know. You're behaving, aren't you? Behaving. I'm like, yeah, of course I'm behaving. What's the matter with you? I'm just fucking, didn't swear in front of my mum, fucking hell. But I was like, just playing, you know, I'm just going to my, you know, doing my club, leave me alone. But that was funny to have that sort of mix up. But all in all, anyway, at this club, this is where we met our friend Robert. So, do I have a card I can use? Oh yes, I have 2 dark bribes. So fuck you, Jack. Oh, he has a dark bribe. Oh well, I have another dark bribe. So fuck you, Jack. Totally wasted 2 dark bribes there to make that. That's a lot. That's so much to waste for 100 points of damage. I should not have done that. I should not have done that. Anyway, fuck it. I don't care. It's fun. I think at that point I just wanted to prove a point. I was just like, dark bribe. No, fuck off, Jack. I'll fucking dark bribe you. Anyway, it was there we met my friend Robert, and it was actually at that club, a Twisted Club, where I met Shady Fox. You don't know. And me and Rob, I think it was Rob who told me about Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series by Martin. Or not. I've either told him, or he told me, or someone told us. But I remember it was kind of, because obviously we kind of both started watching it, and it got to a point that at the club we'd do certain moves, we'd make little quotes, we'd quote Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, and then obviously other people started watching it, so we'd all start quoting it. And I remember Shady even being like, "What's that about? What's that you talking?" I was like, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Go and you should search for it. You should watch it. Little Kribo. Search Little Kribo on YouTube. Back when Little Kribo had his Little Kribo page. That's how long ago this was. And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I think I will do." So next week he came back, like us, joining in on all the quotes, talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, and we'd quote it every now and again. And that's when Shady was like, he started getting into the whole parody element aspect of it, and from watching stuff like that. I think so with his COVID and little things like that. Anyway, by that point we had a little group, and Shady kind of drew towards that group and became a part of it. And I remember him then saying that he was doing YuGiOh GX Abridged, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing." Again, if you've been to panels where I've answered a question like, "How did you get into abridging?" I'm pretty much just talking about that now. But you know, I feel I have to tell you all this to sort of make or have it all make sense. So he went on making this with a friend of mine who he never actually made it in. He never actually made it with that friend, and he made it on his own. Oh, you little bastard! And basically, I keep saying basically a lot. I should stop. He makes it, and he came around to mine one day. Yeah, sorry about that. Just had to sort some. I had a bit of memory issue there, so I had to the recording just stopped. Anyway, I was talking about Shady. He came, drew to our group, told us about this GX, told about his GX Abridged. Let's get back on with it. I need to unpause this now, don't I? Pause, right? I'll pause. So I watched it, thought it was terrible, and I said to him, he said, "What do you think?" I went, "It's not great." It's not. I mean, it wasn't, and that's not like it wasn't like a deliberate stab. I just wasn't too fond of it. So I was just like, no, wasn't keen, mate. Wasn't too keen. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm actually working. And anyway, he stayed over a few weeks later. I was like, what are you up to? He was like, oh, I'm just making my my second episode of YuGiOh GX Abridged. I was like, oh, right, okay. He's like, and then obviously he wanted to know more because he didn't even watch GX Abridged. He just chose it because he didn't want to do YuGiOh Abridged. I think he wanted to just keep it as a Yu-Gi-Oh. But obviously at that point I did watch GX Abridged, so I knew the characters and I knew a lot of more of the aspects and stuff. And he said, look, I know you said you didn't like the first episode, but maybe you could help me with this episode. What would you have Cyrus say at this point? So I'd come up with a line, I'd say a voice to demonstrate what I thought Cyrus would say, and he's like, "Oh, that's pretty good actually." He says, "You should use that voice. Do you want to do a voice of that?" And I went, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." So like I say, that's more or less how I got into abridging, is because I got Shady into abridging, then he got me. I got Shady into like abridging, and he got liking abridging. So, oh, fuck off, Jack. Probably gonna lose this duel at this rate. Phase 2 set. Anyway, fast forward, do abridging, but then obviously with abridging, through abridging, I made connections. I met people, and that's when I met Lady Nanaki, who would eventually become my girlfriend, become my fiance. We now have a baby, and that's kind of the spiral of what I'm trying to get. All this has happened because of Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, I probably would not have met Shady without Yu-Gi-Oh! And I wouldn't have met Martin. I wouldn't have met Masco. I definitely wouldn't have met Trace. I wouldn't be a dad right this second without Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. It's, people can take the piss and be like, oh yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! This, that, and over, but. And I'm not just saying this is unique to Yu-Gi-Oh! This is just, I suppose it's unique to any fandom. If you're a part of something, so much, and you love it so much, eventually it's going to affect your life in both positive and negative ways. For me, it's been all positive, though. And I think that's why I'm probably never going to get out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's had so much of an effect on my life. It'd be like deciding you're never going to walk again. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just like, I'm not going to walk anymore. I'm just going to, crawl or wheelchair it. You couldn't do it. Eventually, you would, if you were perfectly capable of walking and just decided not to walk anymore, you'd have to eventually stand up and decide and start walking, You can't just not decide not to do something that's affected you and it's been a part of your life that much. If you are still capable of doing it. Like, for example, most of the X-Force now, I think I'm about to lose this. Most of the X-Force now have pretty much fucked off. Not all of them, like, Force Boy's moved to America. I know he wants to move back, but obviously there's issues. I say obviously, it's not obvious at all, because you don't know about it. But there are issues, like legal issues and stuff, because he married a girl in America and he moved there, and he wants to come back, and he misses the boys, he misses. I think he misses it all, and I miss him. I miss hanging out with him. He's fucking top. you know, the original X-Force. But you know, Robot moved to Lincoln, which is pretty. It's not super. It's not super. It's about an hour, a couple of hours, I think, on the train. But obviously with my money issues and time, his money issues, and his time's even worse than my time. He works all the fucking time. He gets no time off. But he's coming up in April, so if you're fans of Team X-Force, keep an eye out for Team X-Force channel. I've lost this duel. I'm just gonna say that right now. There's no way I'm winning this duel today. So I'll just set that and fucking call it a day. I'm gonna end this video soon now because this duel's near enough over, and I've more or less said what I've needed to say. But yeah, he's coming up in April, so that's gonna be top. It's only really me and Jace of the X-Force now that are sort of here in Blackpool. Shade doesn't play anymore. You know, Stay the Beast. Who knows where he is? So, you know, it's just things change, but you know, it's good. I still like, you know, I still try and play Yu-Gi-Oh as much as I can. Even if Jace decides to fuck off tomorrow, I'll probably still play Yu-Gi-Oh on the computer and play it on the PS4. And I'll still you know, play Yu-Gi-Oh. Because it's just one of those things. It's just such a huge part of my life, you know. And you know, even Tracy makes fun of me for playing it, you know, every now and again. She does tease me, but what she doesn't realise is if it wasn't for this game, we wouldn't have met.
I realise that.
You realise that, and I'm glad you realise that.
You're just a nerd.
I am a nerd, yes, but you know, I'm proud. I like it, you know. I you know, so that's all I gotta say. You know, if you're a big enough fan of something, you know, and I just wanted to break down how Yu-Gi-Oh as a game, which is why I'm probably saying it to try and justify why I'm able to do these videos and talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, because it's had such a huge impact on my life that, you know, it's just one of those things. It's just, and it all boiled down to Red Eyes Black Dragon, which annoyingly I didn't get a fucking summon. I've only just built that deck, and to be honest, it was 50 cards. I thought it'd be faster because I threw a lot of drawers in, but obviously not. So I'm going to have to go over this. I'm going to have to fine-tune this thing again because I kind of want to use it. But I've made like a sort of Blue Eyes, Red Eyes deck with a few dragon stuff in it. But not my best deck, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, anyway. But if you want me to use a better deck, by all means, vote. Keep voting because they do all add up. So yeah, why don't you guys tell me how exactly? So for the comment section for our conversation today, why don't you guys tell me what got you into Yu-Gi-Oh for starters? If there's any crazy stories, so what exactly got you into Yu-Gi-Oh? You know, how did it all happen for you? You know, do you still play today, or have an interest in it, either the anime or the games, whatever? And has being a fan of this game affected your life in what way? You know, hopefully, I hope positive. You know, I'm not going to tell you to report if it's negative. You can if you absolutely want. If you have had negative experience with Yu-Gi-Oh, I know I have. I've had a few. I've had go up against some dickheads, and I've had people nick cards. So I'm sure that's happened to everyone. But yeah, today's conversation is how did you get into Yu-Gi-Oh, and what big things in your life can you trace back to the simple fact that you enjoy and play Yu-Gi-Oh. So again, comment below, but be nice to each other, guys. It's just a game, and I'll see you guys next time. And if you can think of any good topic pieces you wanna start up, by all means, again, mention it in the comments below. But again, just be friendly, and talk to you guys later.